There's a quote nobody talks about from Audrey Hepburn's biography, written by Barry Paris. She's talking about the most painful moments of her life. And she says this: "My miscarriages were more painful to me than anything ever, including my parents' divorce and the disappearance of my father." Think about that for a second. Her father abandoned her when she was 6 years old. He walked out, and she spent 29 years searching for him. That was the defining trauma of her childhood. The wound that never healed, the abandonment that shaped every relationship she ever had. And she sang, directly, unambiguously, that losing her babies hurt more. 5 times. 5 pregnancies that didn't survive. 5 children Audrey Hepburn never got to hold. And one of them, the worst one, the one that broke her completely, was a baby girl. 6 months pregnant. Far enough along that she could feel her moving. Far enough along that they'd started planning a nursery. Far enough along that this wasn't just a pregnancy anymore. It was a daughter. And then she was gone. This is the story Audrey never talked about publicly. The grief she carried in silence for her entire life. The babies she lost. The daughters she mourned. The reason she became the mother and the humanitarian that she was. 1955, Audrey Hepburn is 26 years old. She's married to Mel Ferrer, actor, director, 12 years older than her, controlling but stable. They got married in September 1954 in Switzerland. Audrey wore a Pierre Balmain gown that Givenchy arranged for her. She was radiantly happy. Finally, after years of instability, war, poverty, her father's abandonment, failed engagements, she had a husband, a partner, someone who wouldn't leave. And now, in early 1955, she has something else. She's pregnant. Her first pregnancy. She's cautious but hopeful. She's 26, young and healthy. She's eating well, resting, following doctor's orders. Everything should be fine, except it's not. March 1955. Audrey miscarries. The pregnancy just stops. No dramatic accident, no clear cause, just her body saying, "Not this time, not this baby." She's devastated. But the doctors tell her this is common. First pregnancies often don't take. She's young, she's healthy. She can try again, so she does. But in the back of her mind, there's a new fear. A quiet terror she's never felt before. What if her body can't do this? What if she can't have children? What if the war did something to her? The starvation, the malnutrition, eating tulip bulbs to survive in 1945 Netherlands. What if that damaged her so badly that she'll never be a mother? She doesn't talk about this fear publicly. She smiles for cameras. She makes movies. She wears Givenchy gowns and looks elegant and perfect. But inside, she's terrified. 1956. 4 years later, Audrey is 30 years old. She's still married to Mel Ferrer, though the marriage is showing cracks. He's controlling, jealous. He wants to direct her career, manage her choices, decide which roles she takes. She's starting to feel suffocated. But she stays, because leaving means admitting failure. And Audrey doesn't do failure. She's just finished filming The Nun's Story, one of her most demanding roles, playing a nun who struggles with doubt and eventually leaves the convent. The film is dark, serious, emotionally exhausting. She gave everything to it, and now she's pregnant again. her second pregnancy since the 1955 miscarriage. She's cautious. She doesn't tell many people. She's only a few months along, early enough that anything could happen. But she's hopeful. Maybe this time, maybe this baby will make it. And then she gets cast in The Unforgiven, a Western, directed by John Huston, starring Burt Lancaster. It's Audrey's first and only Western, completely outside her usual wheelhouse of elegant romantic comedies and dramas. She plays Rachel Zachary, a woman raised by a white frontier family who discovers she's actually Native American by birth. It's a controversial film for 1959, addressing racism against indigenous people, though deeply flawed in its execution, with Audrey in brownface playing a Native American character. But that's not what matters for this story. What matters is this. Audrey insists on doing her own stunts. She's always been a perfectionist. She studies ballet for years as a child, so she knows how to control her body. She's done physical work before in films. And she doesn't want to look weak or pampered by using a stunt double for a simple horse riding scene. So she climbs onto the horse herself. And everything goes wrong. January 1959. Durango, Mexico, the set of The Unforgiven. Audrey is rehearsing a scene where she rides toward the camera. It's supposed to be straightforward, just riding across the frame, nothing complicated. But one of the crew members moves at the wrong moment. The horse spooks, rears back, and throws Audrey off. She hits the ground hard, so hard she breaks her back in 4 places, 4 vertebrae fractured. Doctors will later say she's lucky she wasn't paralyzed. Lucky she didn't suffer permanent spinal damage. Lucky she survived it all. But in the moment, lying in the dirt in Mexico, all Audrey can think about is the baby. She's in agonizing pain. She can barely breathe, but she manages to joke to her co-star, Audie Murphy. "I'm taking a vacation. Want to join me?" That's Audrey. Even in the worst moment of her life, she's trying to make other people feel comfortable. She's flown back to Los Angeles, spends 6 weeks in the hospital. Doctors stabilize her spine. The breaks will heal. She'll be able to walk, to work, to live a normal life. But the baby is still there, still alive, still growing despite the trauma. Audrey thinks, maybe we're okay. Maybe the baby is strong enough. Maybe we both survived. She goes home, wears a back brace, follows doctor's orders, rests, waits, prays. A few months later, spring 1959, she miscarries. The fall didn't kill the baby immediately, but it did enough damage that the pregnancy couldn't continue. Her body couldn't sustain it. And just like that, her second pregnancy is gone. Audrey is shattered. She blames herself. If she hadn't insisted on doing the stunt, if she'd used the double, if she'd been more careful, if she'd protected the baby better, this one is her fault. That's what she tells herself. And that guilt will haunt her for the rest of her life. But here's what nobody expected. Here's what makes this story even more heartbreaking. Within months, maybe even weeks, Audrey is pregnant again. Third pregnancy, third chance. She's determined. She's going to make this work. She's going to have this baby. And for the first few months, everything seems fine. She's careful now. No stunts, no dangerous work. She's resting, eating well, following every single doctor's order. And as the months go by, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, she starts to believe. This is the one. This is the baby that's going to make it. And then, at 6 months pregnant, she learns. It's a girl, a daughter. Not just a pregnancy anymore, not just a baby, a daughter. She starts planning, starts imagining. What will her daughter look like? Will she have Audrey's eyes? Will she love ballet like Audrey did? Will she be strong and kind and beautiful? For the first time in years, Audrey lets herself hope, lets herself dream about the future, about being a mother, about raising a daughter. And then, sometime between the 5th and 6th month, the exact timing isn't clear from the sources, Audrey miscarries again. No dramatic accident this time, no fall, no clear cause. Her body just stops. The pregnancy ends. The daughter she'd been dreaming about for months. The little girl she'd already started loving. Gone. Just like that. This is the loss Audrey never recovered from. This is the baby she mourned for the rest of her life. Her son, Sean, born in 1960, a year after this loss, will later tell reporters, "My mother was especially saddened by the last miscarriage because she knew it was a girl and she was 6 months pregnant." 6 months. Far enough along that you're showing, that you felt the baby move, that you've started buying clothes and picking names, that you've told people, that you've started believing this is real. And then it's over. And there's nothing you can do. Barry Paris, Audrey's biographer, quotes her directly. "My miscarriages were more painful to me than anything ever, including my parents' divorce and the disappearance of my father." Read that again. Her father abandoned her at age 6. That abandonment shaped her entire life. Every relationship, every insecurity, every fear, and losing her babies, especially the daughter she carried for 6 months, hurt more than that. That's how deep this grief went. If you're realizing that Audrey Hepburn's real story is so much more painful than the elegant image we remember, consider subscribing. Because these aren't just celebrity stories, they're human stories about loss and grief and how we survive the unsurvivable. And they matter. 1960, Audrey is 31 years old. She's recovering from the 3rd miscarriage, the baby girl at 6 months. She's devastated, broken. She tells Mel Ferrer she wants to take time off from acting. She needs to grieve, needs to heal, needs to figure out if she can keep trying. And then, miracle of miracles, she gets pregnant again. 4th pregnancy. By now she's terrified. She doesn't tell anyone outside immediate family. She barely lets herself believe it's real. She rests constantly, stops working entirely, lives in a state of constant vigilance, monitoring every twinge, every cramp, every sensation, waiting for her body to betray her again. But this time it doesn't. This time, the pregnancy holds. 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, the point where she lost the baby girl. She holds her breath 7 months, 8 months. And on July 17th, 1960, Audrey gives birth to a healthy baby boy, Sean Hepburn Ferrer. She's 31 years old. It took 4 pregnancies over 5 years to get here. 3 losses before this one success. And when they place Sean in her arms, Audrey weeps. Not just with joy, though there is joy, enormous joy, but with grief for the babies who didn't make it. The daughter she lost at 6 months, who would have been Sean's older sister. Shortly after Sean's birth, Audrey writes a letter to a close friend. The letter will later be published in Vanity Fair. She writes, "Sean is truly a dream, and I find it hard to believe he is really ours to keep. Ours to keep." Think about those words. After 3 miscarriages, Audrey can't quite believe this baby won't be taken from her too. That he's permanent. That she gets to be his mother. That's the psychology of repeated pregnancy loss. You never quite trust it. Even when you're holding your healthy baby, part of you is waiting for disaster. And here's what makes this even more beautiful and heartbreaking. Audrey becomes obsessed with motherhood. Not in a toxic way, but in a way that makes sense after everything she's been through. She takes an entire year off from acting after Sean is born. A full year. Just to make sure he's okay. Just to be with him. Just to prove to herself that she's a good mother. That she can do this. She writes in letters that being a mother is more important than being an actress. That nothing, no role, no film, no Oscar, matters as much as this child. And she means it. For the next several years, Audrey is selective about roles. She only takes films that shoot close to home or that have short schedules. She brings Sean with her to sets. She structures her entire life around being present for him. Because after losing 3 babies, she's not going to waste a single moment with the one who survived. But the miscarriages aren't over. 1965. Audrey is 36 years old, still married to Mel Ferrer, though the marriage is deteriorating. She's pregnant again, 5th pregnancy total. She's cautious but hopeful. Sean is 5 years old. Maybe he'll have a sibling. Maybe she'll get to experience motherhood again. But in 1965, she miscarries for the 4th time. Some sources say this happened. Some sources say it was actually 1967. The exact year is unclear because Audrey never talked about it publicly. But what's clear is this. After Sean was born, Audrey had at least 1 more, possibly 2 more, miscarriages. Her body kept trying, kept getting pregnant, but couldn't carry to term, and each loss reinforced the same message. Sean is a miracle, the one baby who survived, the only child she'll ever have. Except she doesn't stop trying, because she wants another child so desperately. She wants Sean to have a sibling. She wants to experience that joy again. And she's still young enough, barely, that maybe, just maybe, her body will cooperate one more time. 1968. Audrey finally leaves Mel Ferrer. The marriage has been dead for years. He's controlling, jealous, dismissive of her needs. She stays as long as she does, partly for Sean. She doesn't want him to grow up with divorced parents like she did. And partly because admitting the marriage failed feels like admitting she failed. But in 1968, she finally has enough. She files for divorce. Within months, she meets Andrea, Italian psychiatrist, 9 years younger than her. Handsome, charming, attentive in all the ways Mel never was. She falls hard. They marry in January 1969. Audrey is 40 years old. And in May 1969, 4 months after the wedding, she gets pregnant. 6th pregnancy. She's 40. Doctors consider this a geriatric pregnancy by 1969 standards. High risk. More likely to miscarry. More likely to have complications. But Audrey doesn't care. She wants this baby. This is her chance at a second child. her chance to give Sean a sibling, her chance to prove that her body can still do this. And incredibly, miraculously, the pregnancy holds. 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. The point where she lost the baby girl in 1959. She's terrified. But the pregnancy continues. 7 months, 8 months. And on February 8th, 1970, Audrey gives birth to her second son, Luca Andrea Dotti. She's 40 years old. It took 6 pregnancies, over 15 years to have 2 children. 4 miscarriages, 4 lost babies. But now she has 2 sons, 2 miracles. And Audrey, who never talks about her grief publicly, who never shares her losses with the world, finally has what she's always wanted. A family, 2 children, the life she dreamed about. But here's what nobody understood at the time. Here's what only makes sense in retrospect. Audrey's entire relationship with motherhood, her obsession with being present, her willingness to walk away from her career, her inability to leave bad relationships for the children, her eventual work with UNICEF, saving starving children around the world. All of it traces back to the babies she lost, to the daughter who died at 6 months, to the 4 times her body failed her, to the grief she carried in silence her entire life. Let's trace this. Let's see how the miscarriages shaped everything. Why did Audrey stay with Andrea Dotti for 13 years, even though he cheated on her with over 200 women? Why did she tolerate the public humiliation, the affairs he brought into their home, the mistresses everyone knew about? Because she had Luca. And after losing 4 babies, she would not, could not, take Luca's father away from him. She would not break up the family. She would not make Luca a child of divorce, like she was. So she stayed. For 13 years, through affair after affair after affair. Because protecting Luca mattered more than protecting herself. Why did Audrey quit acting in 1967? Why did she walk away from Hollywood at age 38, at the height of her career? Because being a mother was more important. Because she only had 2 children out of 6 pregnancies, and she was not going to waste that gift making movies. Sean and Luca needed her more than Hollywood did. Why did Audrey become a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador in 1988? Why did she spend the last 5 years of her life traveling to the worst places on earth? Refugee camps in Ethiopia, war zones in Sudan, famine-stricken villages in Somalia, holding dying children and using her fame to force the world to pay attention? Because every starving child she held was one of the babies she lost. Every child she couldn't save in 1955, 1959, 1965, 1967. She was trying to save them now. Through UNICEF, through humanitarian work, through giving everything she had left to children who needed someone to fight for them. Sean Ferrer, speaking about his mother years after her death, said, "She saw herself in those children, the war, the hunger, the suffering. And I think she was also trying to save the children she never got to hold. And then there's this detail. This small, strange, heartbreaking detail that only makes sense when you understand the miscarriages, 1959. Right after Audrey lost the baby following the horse accident. Right after the second miscarriage in 4 years. Mel Ferrer is filming Green Mansions, a film he's directing, set in the South American jungle. And on set, there's a fawn, a baby deer, used in a scene that no longer needed for production. Mel brings the fawn home, gives it to Audrey. She's recovering from the miscarriage, grieving, broken, and suddenly she has this tiny, fragile creature to take care of. She names the fawn Ip, short for Pippin, and she mothers it. She makes a bed for Ip in the bathtub, feeds the fawn by hand, keeps it in the house, treats it like a baby. There are photographs of Audrey with Ip. She's smiling in these photos, the first real smile since the miscarriage. She's cradling the fawn like a child. And for a few months, Ip fills the space left by the baby she lost. It's not the same. Of course it's not the same. But it's something small and alive that needs her. Something she can protect and nurture and keep safe. Eventually, Ip grows too big for the house. They return the deer to the wild. And a year later, Audrey gives birth to Sean. But the story of Ip the deer, the surrogate baby, the thing she loved when she couldn't have the real thing, that story tells you everything about Audrey's grief, about how deep it went, about how desperately she needed to be a mother. 2003. 10 years after Audrey's death. Her son, Sean Ferrer, gives an interview to The Telegraph. He's asked about his mother's voice, how it feels to hear her in films, in interviews, in recordings. And he says this: "For me, it's not the voice of an actress. It's the voice of my mother. And I hear her everywhere. In my head, giving me advice, telling me to be kind, telling me to help people who need help." Then the interviewer asks, "Did your mother ever talk about her miscarriages?" And Sean pauses. He's quiet for a long time. Then he says, "She didn't talk about them often, but I knew. Everyone in the family knew. And I knew that one of them, the one before I was born, was a girl. My mother was 6 months pregnant. She'd felt her moving. She'd started planning the nursery. And then she lost her. My mother carried that grief her whole life. And I think that's why she loved Luca and me so much. Because she knew how easily we could have been lost too." So here's what we're left with: 5 pregnancies that didn't survive, 4 miscarriages over 15 years, 1 daughter lost at 6 months. More painful than anything, Audrey said. More painful than her father abandoning her. More painful than war and starvation and watching her uncle executed by Nazis. More painful than failed marriages, sadis and betrayals, and public humiliation. The babies she lost hurt more than all of it, and she spent the rest of her life trying to make sense of that loss. Trying to be the best mother she could be to the sons who survived. Trying to save other people's children through UNICEF. Trying to fill the space left by the daughter she never got to hold. She succeeded. By every measure that matters, she succeeded. Sean and Luca both grew up knowing they were loved. Unconditionally, completely. In a way that made them secure and confident and kind. And the children Audrey helped through UNICEF, the ones in Ethiopia and Sudan and Somalia. They got food and medicine and attention because of her. Because she refused to look away. Because she used her fame for something that mattered. But the grief never left. How could it? You don't lose 5 babies and just move on. You carry them with you forever. In every choice you make, in every child you see, in every moment of joy with the children who survived. January 20th, 1993. Audrey Hepburn dies at home in Switzerland. She's 63 years old, surrounded by her two sons, Sean and Luca, and her partner, Robert Wolders. Her last words, on Christmas 1992, were about how beautiful the holiday was, how grateful she was, how much she loved her family. But in those final weeks, when she knew she was dying, did she think about the babies she lost? The daughter who would have been 33 years old by then? The daughter who would have been there, maybe, holding her hand? The daughter she carried for 6 months and loved before she ever got to meet her? We don't know. Audrey never talked about it publicly, never wrote about it, never shared that grief with anyone outside her immediate family. But Sean thinks she did. In that 2003 interview, he says, "I think my mother thought about all her children in those final days. The ones who lived, and the ones who didn't. And I think she finally got to be at peace with it. With all of it." Maybe he's right. Maybe in those final weeks, Audrey finally made peace with the losses, with the grief, with the question that haunted her entire life. Why couldn't I save them? Or maybe not. Maybe grief like that never fully resolves. Maybe you carry it to the grave. But either way, this much is true. Audrey Hepburn loved her children, all of them, born and unborn, with a fierceness that shaped every decision she ever made. And that love, that grief, that determination to be the mother she dreamed of being, that's the real story. Not the elegant movie star in Givenchy gowns, not the icon with perfect hair and timeless style, but the woman who lost 5 babies and kept trying, who had 2 sons and loved them completely, who spent her last years saving children because she couldn't save her own. That's Audrey Hepburn. That's the truth. And maybe that's why her humanitarian work meant so much. Maybe that's why, when people remember Audrey today, they don't just remember breakfast at Tiffany's and Roman holiday. They remember the UNICEF ambassador, the woman who held starving children in refugee camps, the woman who cried for them on camera and forced the world to pay attention. Because those children were her children. All of them. The ones she lost, the ones she saved, the ones she loved. Every single one. This is Audrey Hepburn, The Hidden Truth. From wartime horrors to Hollywood secrets, we uncover what they've been hiding for decades. Subscribe to discover the dark truth behind the elegant image.